quick warning for anyone with headphones on. Loud noise incoming now. Hello and welcome everyone to the LDG Experience podcast, episode 15. And Tom's looking at me weird because I can't stop giggling because we did one of the weirdest things I think I've ever done today. So does anyone want to fill?
No, let's do everything else and then we'll fill everyone in on that.
Okay.
Like,
you can wait for that.
Yeah,
they can wait for that.
Build anticipation.
Yeah. Build the anticipation.
Build
okay.
anticipation. Right, so first of all, me and Evie have listened back to some of our podcasts. Ooh. And we have noticed that while I am quite hearable, is that?
Audible.
I am audible. Pete and Evie are not. So we've moved, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's changed. I don't like change. Yeah, as nerds, we're not fans.
Yeah, I am now sat in a different position.
Yeah, so hopefully the audio balances out.
Yeah, but
better.
I am uncomfortable. Not physically, mentally.
Yeah.
So just going to put that out there before we start. Next, and leading on to discomfort, our website is still fully operational, but Evie has been cleaning out the back office part of it this week. So
if anyone's got anything you can do with 3 gigabytes of loose cookies, and...
we've been removing shit tons of redundant products. Or I say we, I have done nothing. I've been playing Civ 6.
Cheered on.
Evie has been removing shit tons of redundant products. By the way, Civ 6 is great.
Yes.
Just completely aside. But mentioning the website, as I just did, if you're interested in pre-ordering the new Lorcana stuff that's gone live, it will be going live today on lazydragongaming.com.
Today of recording.
It will already be
live. It will already be live. It will have been live for 3 weeks.
Oh dear, time. It's
potentially 4 weeks.
It's available for pre-order on our website right now.
Yeah.
Which is lazydragongaming.com, and that's the new Lorcana set, which is coming out. We haven't had a release date
called
yet.
Ursula's Return.
Ursula's Return, Pete.
I wonder who's coming back in that.
I don't know.
Is it Stitch?
Yes, probably. Now, with that being said, if you want to find us or find our website, you can do that. LazyDragonGaming.com and all over every social media, with the exception of Twitter/X, because we can't log in and I can't be bothered with it. So yeah. So basically, it's Lazy Dragon Gaming all over the different things. And LD Gaming Live on Twitch. We will be at time of recording. We're not live yet, but by the time you see this, we may have done some live streams. So LD Gaming Live for both Lorcana streaming, which is me, the Alley Cat, and the Naughty Knitter, which will be Evie, who will be knitting all sorts of nerdy things.
Possibly Lorcana.
Things, yes. But yeah, so those things are on Twitch at LD Gaming Live. And Pete, you are also on Twitch, are you not?
I am also on Twitch. Lovely segue. We're getting better.
I am.
At Onyx Dragon Gaming, Monday through Wednesdays. As of time of release, I want to say we'll be painting probably some lovely special characters from 40k and fantasy, etc.
Well, someone lovingly sent you a Garskull Thrasher.
They did. So hopefully that will be painted. Would have been painted last week. As of the time you listen to this.
Yeah. Maybe.
But if it's not finished, tune in.
Yeah.
Tune in this week to see it being finished. And also Makari.
Makari and Garskull. But also, not only if you tune in to watch Pete paint it, you will also be in with a chance to purchase it.
Yes, because
as well.
Yeah, once we finish painting them, we'll be putting them up on the old eBay.
Yes.
For you guys to bid on and hopefully own a lovely handcrafted Ghazghkull Thrasher. Yeah. Painted lovingly.
Lovingly painted. But yeah, you can find Pete, Onyx Dragon Gaming, all over social media.
Yes, where all good social media is sold.
Yes. And also, both of us, Onyx Dragon Gaming, Lazy Dragon Gaming, on YouTube for the LDG Experience, and also the Onyx Dragon Gaming different painty things.
And also vlogging and things, because probably by the time this has gone live, I'll have been wandering around Salute.
Oh my word.
Oh.
Yeah, so you'll hopefully get to see videos of me wandering around Salute looking at shiny new models from all sorts of different countries. Yes, and maybe even interviewing a few people. I'm going to try and see if I can grab some people I've known from the past, because you see a lot of GW staff who are there on their time off wandering around.
So you grab them and
I grab them and be like, hey, it's me!
Come and give me things.
Yes, so who knows? Tune in and have a look and see what we did, what we got up to at
I must say, GW staff at conventions are extremely helpful.
Yes.
UK Games Expo a couple of years ago, I ran out of bags. So I went over to them and I went, I have an account with you guys.
Yeah.
And
bags plus.
I need bags, but obviously can't get them from
you do it like right this second.
Trade. I need them right now. I'll give you my account numbers and everything if you need to take them off my marketing budget or anything like that. And they were like, Nah.
Here, have box.
Have a box of bags.
Yeah, that sounds like Brian and his team.
Yep.
If it's still Brian, I don't know. It used to be. But...
Now, speaking of Brian, now we can
here we go. Speaking of Games Workshop.
Speaking of Games Workshop, and a segue into people who used to do things.
Yes.
So we are sat here flicking through old copies of White Dwarf.
Yeah, I've gone through my very, very dark grey library to find all the relevant things for this episode.
Yes.
And we were looking through classic White Dwarfs and the various articles and looking at how old... This is White Dwarfs from nearly 30 years ago. And I was looking at the list of stores, and I happened to note that Games Workshop Southampton had been open from at least 1997. And I remember that Games Workshop Southampton has only ever had one store manager, and that is a wonderful bloke by the name of Rod, who is an absolute institution. And I joked that I was pretty certain he was still working for running Games Workshop Southampton. So Tom decided that he would like to check. So we tried the phone number in the White Dwarf, which sadly didn't work, but only because it is still the same location, it's the same store. The only reason that number didn't work is because the area code for Southampton had changed. The actual 6-digit phone number for the store itself hadn't changed at all. Yeah. So we managed to track that down. We give him a ring just to see, and Tom was like, "Hey, does Rod still work there?" And the guy at the other end of the phone, I think his name was Gav, was like, he's still here. We explained why we called, and he was like, he's pretty much part of the furniture at this point, like structurally integral to the store.
Yeah. Which was great. So Gav and Rod, Games Workshop Southampton, thank you for indulging our weirdness.
Our weird curiosity, yes.
At like 1:20 on a fucking
Thursday
afternoon.
Yeah.
But we appreciate that, and thank you for playing along and all the rest of it. So we did say we'd give them a shout. So Gav, I believe it was Gav.
Yeah.
I hope it's Gav. If it's not, I apologise. But definitely Rod, Games Workshop Southampton. And if you are in Southampton and you're listening, or anywhere Portsmouth based or anywhere around there, pop in and tell them that you heard about them on the Lazy Dragon Gaming Experience, and to say hi to Rod.
Yes.
So do that for us if you're down that way. Now, the other thing I want to do real quick is I want to give a shout out to our Russian listeners, because we do have them now.
Privyet, Braska.
On YouTube, yes.
On YouTube. We have Russian listeners. We're quite big now in Russia.
And Indonesian.
And Indonesia.
Crikey.
Yes.
We're not witches, it's fine.
No.
Sorry, I know that's a thing in Indonesia, so no.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, we're not a witch. Please don't kill us.
No. Well, they'd have a job.
I don't know. I don't know how far their sort of Inquisition equivalent reaches, so I just want to make sure.
Right, yeah, fair enough. And just in case the Inquisition is listening.
Yes, as always.
As always. So to all those people throughout the world, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have just found us, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and all the other good things that you can do to do with podcasts and all the rest of it. And we are now going to move on to the topic of today's conversation, which is Orcs Part 3, the final part of our
Electric Boogaloo
or something, which is
the game, the relatively short-lived but still beloved game of Gorkamorka.
Gorkamorka.
Yes.
Setup for Gorkamorka.
Yes.
According to the background that I have in front of me, aeons ago, as of time of writing, whenever this was, 97, which
was aeons ago.
An orc space hulk crashed into the planet of Angelis.
Yes.
Angelis was a pretty backwaterish planet with not a lot on it. It did have some human habitation.
Yes.
But not a lot.
No.
And it was basically this space hulk came careening out of the warp and crashed into the planet, spewing all manner of poisonous gas and liquid and fuel and orcs.
And then, of course, the massive nuclear fallout from a large rock.
Yes.
Smashing into the ground.
Yeah. And it crashed, basically, and carved a 1,000+ kilometre...
Well, it's a long thing, because they call it the skid.
The skid,
Which is where the orcs live at one end, and the grots live at the other end.
Very, very long, though.
Yes.
Very long. I'm not going to come to why there was an Imperial thing in space.
Quick aside, I found the map here. For those wondering where it is located in relation to the galaxy,
yes,
it is on the sort of northeastern, very far edge of the galaxy.
Yes.
So it's right out on the edge of one of the very far spiral arms.
So what could be considered the arsehole end of nowhere.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Like it's between a rock and nothing.
Yeah. Now, the Angelus was a suspected Necron tomb world.
Yep.
And that's why there is an Imperial something in orbit.
Yeah.
At the time that this thing came hurtling through.
One assumes, now with later background involved and things, it would be some kind of Death Watch listening station.
Yes.
Or Ordo Xenos.
Ordo Xenos listening station, I would imagine.
Just keeping an eye, making sure that, thousands of metal-clad warriors don't just appear out of the sands of the desert.
Yes. But we're going to go through, before we get on to why that's relevant, we're going to go through the different factions.
Yes.
Based on the now named Gorkamorka.
Indeed.
Because they don't actually know the name of the planet for the orcs.
Yeah, they don't sort of land and be like, oh, what's it called? Yeah.
And the Imperials have lost contact with it.
And they don't really, and also don't really care.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So they haven't sent an explorator fleet to have a look because nothing's really happened. So
if anything, they're probably just happy that orcs are there because they can keep the Necrons busy if they do wake up. So,
so we have the orcs.
Of course, who are divided into 2 factions.
No, they're divided into 3 factions.
Yeah?
Yeah. The Greenskins on Gorkamorka are divided into 3 factions.
Well, I was going to say specifically the orcs.
Oh, the orcs are divided.
Specifically the orcs are divided into 2 factions.
2 factions.
The Gorkas.
And the Morkas.
Indeed.
Yes.
One is brutally cunning.
And the other is cunningly brutal.
There we go.
Now, the reason this is relevant is that the Space Hulk and all the orcs on it want to get back to the Big War.
Yes.
And in order to do this, the mechs have got to repair the Space Hulk and
build them a new ship. From all the crap that's around there.
Yeah.
The basic premise of the game is it started off being you were an orc gang, either Gorkas or Morkas, and you were out in the desert trying to find bits of scrap, bits and pieces that had fallen off the Space Hulk to trade into Mechtown, which is like the big capital city, trade them into the mechs to eventually be able to afford passage on said ship.
Yes.
So if you earn enough money, you'd get a special tag that said you were allocated seating on said new ship.
The reason that they do the tag system we'll come to in a moment.
Yes.
It is relevant. And so is the Gorkas and the Morkas.
Yes.
But so they are both the 2.
They're the primary faction to start with. When the game first came out, they were the primary factions that you could play as.
So you're basically playing as orcs, finding scrap and trading it in for teeth and other stuff to get better guns and shooters and buggies and all sorts of
trucks
cool
and all
stuff.
sorts. Yeah.
And the game itself was awesome.
Yes.
You got to race around the desert, shooting other orcs.
Yeah, one of my favorite mechanics of the game was they had special bases that weren't the round slot bases we're used to. They were specifically as small as they could be to keep the models upright. Because one of the mechanics you had was if you, unlike say modern day 40k where a vehicle has X transport capacity where it can transport so many people, the trucks in this game the transport capacity was literally as many models as you could fit in them. But if you moved said truck and an orc fell off of it, that counted as him literally falling out of the truck as it moved. So you had to be very careful about how you put orcs and stuff in and where you put them. So putting the boss surrounded by the youths is probably the best way. So the youths will fall out first.
Yeah,
but yeah, I found that is very much the kind of game this is. It's very tongue-in-cheek.
Very expendable.
Yes.
Hangers-on. So after the crash...
Yes.
The orcs are there and they're trying the mechs basically that run Mechtown, which is what it becomes. They are trying to either build a new ship or repair the bits that they've got with the scrap that everybody brings them. And this is all going fairly well until...
Yeah, because I think they nearly finish it, don't they?
They do get really close to getting it back into space.
Yes.
Until there's an argument between 2 different factions who are arguing over whether the ship is... for Gork, or going to be sanctified for Mork.
Yes,
and this culminates in what started out as kind of friendly rivalry.
Yes, and as these things do, pretty much turned into a religious war.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it happened to kick off at the Space Hulk.
Yes,
and when it did, somebody fired some shots, and part of it went bang,
and they had to pretty much start almost from scratch,
all the way back from scratch again. But that battle and that sort of big fight between not only the mechs and the orcs, but each other, they then decided that, hang on a minute, this is probably a bad idea.
Yes.
Let's call a bit of a truce. We'll get a load of scrap together, panel it flat, and chop it into tokens.
Yes.
And half of them are going to be Gorka tokens.
Yep.
And the other half are going to be Morka tokens.
Yep.
And if you bring us a particularly fancy bit of tech or archaeotech or whatever,
useful part,
we will give you a token with your name on it.
Yes.
So you can't trade it.
Nope. They thought about this.
Yeah, they thought about this in advance. You can't trade these.
There's no second-hand ticket market for...
They
no
also...
Ticketmaster for
no Ticketmaster for
They
these.
also refuse to steal them.
Yes.
Because Gorkamorka would know if
would.
your ticket is stolen.
Yes.
Yeah, Ticketmaster could really do with learning from the orcs.
Yeah, fuck you, Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
So anyway, basically, that's where the token system came from.
Yes.
And of course, with the big explosion, wrecked everything. They had to start completely from scratch.
Yeah.
So that's why...
That's where we're at now.
Where we're at in the history of Gorkamorka. So there is one other thing that stems from this token system.
Yes.
But we'll get back to that in a little while, because I want to carry on talking about the orcs first.
Yes.
So we've got basically the skid. Mechtown is where the
end of the skid, where the final resting place of the ship was.
And then the skid is the big divot that it was carved into.
Yeah, it's like a teardrop shape. Yeah, as you could himagine, if something, hurling out of space at an angle. Yeah. It's literally just sort of gouged a large hole in the ground.
Yeah. And
gouged a trench in the ground.
Yes. And as you get further away from Mechtown, the worse and rougher the skid becomes.
Yes.
So the closer you are to Mechtown, the kind of safer, in inverted commas, you are.
Yeah.
And orcs basically gather around Mechtown and all the...
They build all the little groups build their own forts, because that was part of the big thing about Gorkamorka was each little group gang you had its own fort. Yes. That was like your base of operations.
And your knobs, your bigger orcs, go around Mechtown looking for likely lads.
Yep.
To put together, and some spanners, which are a
lot of apprentice mech boys,
apprentice mechs,
and also youths.
Yes, the young orcs, likely orcs, to form a mob, and they will then go out into the deserty type areas and down the skid to try and find valuable scrap to bring back. And if they find a good vein, like a part of a ship or something, that's where they'll set up their fort.
Yeah, they'll build it around it and start taking it apart.
And they have to defend that from other orcs and knobs and all the rest of it.
It's basically it's kind of vaguely Mad Max, but with greenskins.
Yes. And other things.
Yeah, and other things too. For basically, Mad Max with greenskins.
Mad Max with greenskins. These forts, obviously, the bigger the vein, the bigger the fort. The bigger the fort, the bigger the orcs, because that's how orcs work.
Indeed.
They get bigger and everything else. And that is where most of the orcs on Gorkamorka are. Is that bit and around
in the skid,
and around it.
Yeah.
Now, there's rumours that there are pockets of orcs in other places because orcs spore.
Yeah, and then the wind
will blow them, and there are some others dotted around.
Yeah.
Now, not far away from the skid, in sort of geographical terms, there's some weird pyramids.
Yes.
Strange things that the orcs talk about, and it's one of the few things they're afraid of. Is these pyramids. They don't want to go to the pyramids. They've sent they've sent mobs, and mobs have gone looking for tech because pyramid and it's shiny.
Yeah.
And let's go and have a look at that. And they've never come back.
Yes.
Or worse, bits of them have come back. Because
the other thing, as a quick tangent.
Yes.
This period in Games Workshop's history is literally the same at the same time this game was coming out and its expansions and things. This is also the time when Necrons were first introduced to 40k. So this is literally all happening around the same time. So if you can put two and two together about pyramids in the desert and mysterious goings on and things may or may not be underneath them, you probably see where this is going. Yeah. But this is quite a clever sort of tie-in to what was going on in the realm of 40k at the time.
Yeah, it's a really clever way of
sort of backdooring in some of the Necrons. Yeah.
Now, the general gist of the orcs is that basically on thing, and the thing
that's their shtick.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is get the space orc back into the wild,
into orbit.
Before we go back to the pyramid, which we will be.
Yep.
We're going to go on to what I was the third faction of
greenskins,
but it's greenskins, not orcs. And the tags are relevant there because the Gretchen, the Grots...
What we call now, Grots. This is the first time they were... I think it's one of the first times they're more referred to as Grots rather than Gretchen.
Yes.
Because, Gorkamorka gave us a lot of things that we now consider sort of canon for orcs in general.
Right.
This is the first place a Death Copter was ever invented, came out, with the special character Drekmet Blitzkart,
was easy.
Yes, I know, right? Yeah, so he was the first ever deaf copter.
Right, I didn't know that.
And then after the game had kind of died, he just became the deaf copter model, which was in metal, which was, as you can imagine, was an awful nightmare. But yeah, he's where that first came from.
Right.
Trucks, obviously, there were no trucks in 40k before this game came out, and obviously it was also the first time we had plastic buggies. Well, the plastic buggy predates this, but plastic war tracks came in with this game, as well as the Scorcher and the truck, like I said. There's quite a lot of stuff and terminology as well that came in that we didn't have prior to the game.
Yeah, Gorkamorka. Bring back Gorkamorka.
Yeah, it is a game I would love to see GW do again.
They kind of did one, didn't they, with that Speed Freaks kind of thing they did?
Speed Freaks kind of is, but it's but that's more of a Mad Max Fury Road kind of.
That did bring in some really cool vehicles, though.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's the thing with all the buggies now and the new trucks and stuff. I would love to see
new Gorkamorka.
New Gorkamorka would be amazing.
But yeah, so the third faction.
My personal favourite
is the Gretchen Revolutionary Committee.
Yes, so they got disillusioned.
They did.
By Orc Society
because
and their downtrodden treatment of the Gretchen,
and predominantly because they can't have tokens.
No,
if you're a Grot / Gretchen, you can't have one of you can never earn a token. No matter how good you are at being a Grot.
Indeed,
you can never get on the warship, and they did not like this, and so en masse. They all went on strike one day.
Yep.
And so none of the fires were lit, none of the stalls were set up, none of the pits were cleaned out.
Yeah.
None of the mechs, gubbins was ready to go when their sort of forges were lit or anything like that. And the orcs were like, "The fuck is going on here?" And then the goblins, they're still goblins. Gretchen all en masse marched down the skid to into Mechtown with all their banners and things, and we just listened to a guy who did a really cool voice, and I'm not going to try and do about how they wanted. What do they want? Tokens.
What do we want? Tokens. When do we want them? Now.
That sort of thing.
What do we want? Tokens. When do we want them? Now.
Etc.
Yeah. So they sort of march up to the thing, and basically there's a bit of a kick-off, but then the mechs come out and talk to the Gretchen, and then they go back and have a bit of a huddle, and then as they're going back to talk to them for the second time, all hell breaks loose, and the orcs start stomping on the Gretchen.
Yes, because,
Gretchen.
Indeed.
So nobody's 100% sure, again, who fired the first shot.
Yeah.
But a shot was fired. And this time, instead of blowing up the Space Hulk, they just started massacring Grots everywhere. So the Grots, being Grots, legged it down the skid.
And they went all the way to the end of the skid.
All the way down. But the thing with it is that that's a long ass way, and it's very dangerous. So not all of them made it.
But they eventually set up a town at the far end called Skid Row, which is ruled over by the Gretchen Revolutionary Committee, as personified by the infamous Red Gobbo.
Yes, who most people who are into Games Workshop will know that they've had quite a few new ones now.
He's come back. Yeah, he's made a big comeback now in the sort of lore, and has miniatures, especially around Christmas time.
Yes.
But yeah, he was originally he's like the special character you could hire because Rebel Grots were in faction. Yep. You could hire the Red Gobbo to join your plucky resistance gang, but all his stats were randomised because he may not be the same Red Gobbo as the last time you saw him. There is always a Red Gobbo, whether it is the same Gretchen as last time is debatable.
Yes.
So yeah.
So the committee was formed after they formed Skid Row.
Yes.
And that is sort of the old guard of.
Yeah. It says here they set themselves up in a fairly intact section of a stellar liner which broke off the Hulk during the crash. Yeah. Over many generations, the most disaffected and recalcitrant Gretchen in Mechtown have stuck two fingers up to the Orcs and made their perilous journey down the skid to join their brothers in arms. The revolutionaries demand equal rights to the place on Gorkamorka when it leaves. The Orcs generally consider this to be a hilarious idea and are glad to see the back of such ungrateful troublemakers. The Red Gobbo's freedom fighters liberate food, supplies and even transport from the Orcs on occasion, bringing down the wrath of the orcs upon Skid Row. However, no foray to Skid Row has succeeded in clearing out the place out or capturing the Red Gobbo, and some haven't come back at all.
So they are quite well organised.
This is the thing, you got to forget. Don't forget that the Gretchen are the, for one better term, the smartest of the greenskins.
Yes.
As personified by the fact that they have the better ballistic skill.
Yes.
In the game.
And slightly quicker and nimbler.
Yes.
However,
they are physically small,
diminutive, and cowardly.
Indeed.
But yeah, the factions basically, the committee that runs the sort of Skid Row is basically nominates a Red Gobbo.
Yeah,
and they become the Red Gobbo.
Yeah, he's the personification of he's your Che Guevara. Literally, he's like your Che Guevara, like revolutionary leader. Yeah, sort of the legendary revolutionary leader that, like I say, may have not been replaced a million times.
Yeah. So the basically what will happen is the committee nominates the Red Gobbo. They take over, and with it, so when he takes over, the sort of angles that they work and the what's the word I'm looking for?
Internal politics.
Yeah, the internal politics and their like priorities. That's the word I wanted. The priorities of the committee might change with the Red Gobbo, meaning that you go out on a raid and go, ha! I found the thing you wanted, and you get back and they're like, we didn't want that anymore. We want this other thing. Go and find that instead. Yeah.
Well, the Red Gobbo is the title very much akin to the chairman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, chairman of the committee.
Yeah. And let's point that out.
Yeah, the whole point of the committee is to get rid of the orcs and get some spots on Gorkamorka for Gretchen. Yeah. Because
talk one last thing about the tags that I've just found here is prudent orcs try to obtain as many tags as possible.
Ooh.
And at least one Morka and at least one Gorka tag to be on the safe side.
Yep, that seems
because plainly, when the big day comes, an orc with more tags will take precedence over an orc with less. An orc wears all of his tags all of the time, and you can never be sure when Gorkamorka will do his thing. A rich and successful orc therefore wears a substantial necklace of metal pieces, often referred to as his janglies.
Well,
there you go.
Yeah.
That,
I think, covers the orcs.
That's the greenskins.
That's the greenskins. Mm-hmm. They are basically the main focus of the game.
Yes, they were like, when the game came out, originally it had its first thing, which was literally just orcs versus orcs. Yep. Then there was an expansion called Digganobz, which introduced the Rebelgrots and two other factions to the game.
So we'll start with the pyramids.
Yes, because this is where they come from. Yeah.
And these introduce the diggers.
Yes.
The diggers,
very primitive humans.
Yeah, we think, or it is believed, I should say, rather than we think, it is believed that they were the humans that were on the planet when the Hulk hit.
Yes.
Which were primitive-ish.
Yeah, humans. And very much in terms of, like, in the same way as, like, Planet of the Apes type. Think of the humans from Planet of the Apes. Yes. That's pretty much the level of humanity we're at now with the diggers. But they live in tunnels all around the mesas that are around the pyramids. Yeah. And one of the things the orcs can't figure out is why they can live there without being murdered. Live in and around the pyramids, in and around and under the pyramids. And they can trade technology, and they can vaguely understand how some of orc technology works, but they're pretty dumb, even by orc standards. But yeah, they live so close to the pyramids. It says here, why the diggers can live so close to the pyramids without getting killed is the 100-teeth question. The diggers say that their bosses, Durekas, keep them safe, but they won't say any more than that. The orcs know that the diggers have shaman who can use magic to find things and hide things, because they sometimes hire them for special jobs. But the shaman aren't Durekas, so what magic do the Durekas have that keeps the Night Stalkers at bay? So yeah, there must be some sort of thing.
There's something going on.
But again, it was never really, like a lot of stuff with Gorkamorka, it was never really elaborated on.
So the wreckers, we'll come back to in a minute. The diggers, they live underground.
Yes, because they are white-skinned humans, and as any one of us who's been out in any kind of foreign country, from the wonderful wet isles of Britain, has been to any kind of foreign country where they have that thing they call the sun.
Good God.
We turn into the colour of a dead lobster.
Yeah, and we blister.
Indeed.
So they live on what they call the downside, which is the tunnels around the pyramids.
Yes.
They then come to the upside to trade and get things off orcs, because over time the diggers have decided that they quite like the orcs and they quite want to be orcs.
Yes.
To the point where they wear big sort of facial prosthetic type
especially
things.
their leaders known as the Wreckers.
The Wreckers.
They wear like big prosthetic jaws to make them, and big horns to make them look like orcs and orc war bosses. They also tend to paint their faces green as well.
A lot of the artwork for Gorkamorka shows the diggers having painted themselves green.
Yeah, they like I said, they want to. But the thing is, they this is where a lot of the Mechtown gets its actual technology from. Is from the diggers, because they'll bring in, as I say, like oxygen tanks, transmitters, fuel rods, generators, the kind of things like, because orcs are mostly picking up bits of metal, and the occasional like piping and stuff, whereas the diggers are like, here is this piece of technology, it beeps and whirs, please take it and give us one of them big gun things, because ours has stopped working. So obviously the mechs absolutely fleece the diggers for all this technology, which will be worth hundreds of teeth in orky hands, but as far as they're concerned, they just keep...
I want that big gun, please.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, can you make our truck work? We've dragged it here all the way from the pyramids. Yeah. Please make it work again. Here's a shiny doodad and this glowy rod which made Steve's arm fall off. Yeah.
Now, the thing that stopped the orcs en masse going and taking all this tech from the diggers is... well, they tried. I think we'll start with that bit. They actually tried to go and just root out the diggers, kill them all off and take all their stuff.
Yes.
But something stopped them. It is elaborated on ever so slightly that in the night, as they were coming into this particular thing...
I'll give you a hint. Okay. There's plenty of grisly stories which do the rounds in Mechtown about how such and such went up there and only bits of him came back. Or Nosgrot's boys chased some diggers to their holes and got caught out by getting it dark, and then they was never seen again. The pyramids are generally shunned and believed to be haunted by the things what built them. Once or twice every generation, some avaricious knob will gather a mob of boys to go and plunder the pyramids and prove everybody to be spineless wimps. They're always found in little pieces scattered around in the desert, or they just vanish completely. The ghosts seem to come by night, and witch lights have been seen glowing coldly on the obsidian faces of the pyramids on the blackest nights of the year. Over the years, it's gotten more and more dangerous to go out after dark. According to the stories, the things only used to get you near the pyramids after dark. Nowadays, boys disappear at night out in the open desert, miles from the pyramids. And some forts have been found empty, the mobs apparently having vanished into thin air. So yeah, there we go.
That is the sort of the things that go bump in the night on Gorkamorka.
Yes,
the thing. Now, we know what they don't know is that this is a Necron tomb world.
And they're probably flayed ones.
Flayed ones.
What we would now call flayed ones. But this predates flayed ones, so we wouldn't know what they would be called.
But the reason why the diggers get away with it is because the flayed ones want to be physical people again.
Yeah, they want to be,
Yeah.
So they would like to be biotransference.
Back into being...
Peoples. So, and their forms are actually useful. So they're kept around vaguely so that they could be biotransmuted possibly, if that worked.
So they want the diggers to, we suspect, to transfer their essence back into, so they need something to do that, so they're going to use the diggers because that's the closest thing they've got. And no, these bloody orcs are not going to come in, kill everything and nick all our stuff, so we're going to protect the diggers from that happening.
Yes.
That is what is believed to be going on. So you never actually see a Necron, to my knowledge, on Gorkamorka.
No. There's literally in the other book there is a piece of artwork of a truck zooming across the dunes, and in the foreground there's kind of bits of detritus and a couple of skulls, and one of the skulls is what would have been, if you knew the models at the time, is a Necron skull.
Yes.
So, like I said, there are loads of hints and things, but at the time, Necrons were brand new to 40k, and a lot of their background that we now take for granted was didn't even exist. Flayed ones wouldn't even exist. No. This is why I'm saying we would infer that these would probably be the flayed ones or the tomb, the Canoptech things that were keeping the tombs going. But also, like I said, the thing is, these days, Necrons wouldn't even put up with the diggers; they would just kill them. Yeah. But at the time, like I said, the background was new. There's a lot of loose ends and changes and things and threads, so they were just these mysterious pyramids. Well,
you could probably get away with it if you wrote it right.
You could.
Particular tomb world was their overlord was up to something like.
Yeah. Well, also there's things like we're doing with the Pariah Nexus. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I miss about the lore was that in sort of 3rd edition, one of the units they had, the Necrons had, were pariahs, which were literal psychic blanks, humans they'd taken and sort of cyberized to be anti-psychic, soulless constructs that could go up against chaos and things, because chaos is the most anathema thing to Necrons and C'tan.
Yeah. The big enemy for the Necrons is not the Imperium of Man.
No.
It is chaos.
Yes, because it was unleashed. In theory, we theorised it was unleashed as a weapon.
Yeah.
Eternal War in Heaven was against the C'tan.
Yeah.
That was the inference that chaos was one of the last 2 weapons unleashed against them.
Yeah, and the big thing obviously being that the Necrons didn't like that, and although the Necrons aren't pleasant, they don't like chaos. So hence, and they don't like Tyranids.
Hence Noctilith, what we now call Noctilith or Blackstone, as we know it, was used. Yeah, was a Necron thing used to sort of control and force back warp emergencies.
Yes, which now the Imperium of Man would love to get its hands on as much of that as is physically possible.
Well, yeah, because Abaddon's got most of it. Yeah. Because he got a lot of it from blowing up a certain planet.
Yep.
And nicking the pylons that were buried in it.
But yeah, so all manner
Is that an obligatory reference to our favourite?
No, this is specifically to the Fall of Cadia.
That's the Fall of Cadia.
No, it's the Fall of Cadia. Cadia was studded with Blackstone pylons, which were for a very long time were considered one of the things that was holding the Eye of Terror, not closed, but at least back. Yeah. So that when Abaddon blew it up, that was part of how the Cicatrix Maledictum came into being.
This is what happens if you take away the stoppers.
Yeah, and then he took said stoppers and shaped them, and then his real cunning plan was to ring Terror with a bunch of these, which would shut off all warp conduits to and from Terror. Because he was like, I don't need to take Terror, but if I cut it off from the rest of the Imperium will go nuts because there's no orders coming from the Throne World. So he nearly got away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling custodians. Yeah. But again, that's featured in a wonderful book called Watchers of the Throne.
Yes. And that one is the one where you get Alea
and Valerian. Yeah. That's the first of their 2 novels. Both of those novels are really, really good. Really good. Especially the again, because they feature one of the coolest characters who ever keeps returning. Or I want to say one position that keeps returning and end up being embodied by awesome people, the Grandmaster of Assassins. Yes. That's definitely a future episode we have to do, is various Grandmasters of the Assassins and how badass and awesome they were.
They always are cool.
They always are. If they pop up in a story, they're usually about to do something freaking cool.
You know, if you get the Grandmaster of Assassins, you're in for a good time.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you're the person the Grandmaster
on the receiving end of,
wants to come and see and then not so good.
Yeah, indeed.
But yeah, so the Diggers are protected for unknown reasons by
denizens of the pyramids.
Denizens of the pyramids, which we all know now to be, of course, Necrons.
Yes.
And as I said, we don't know why they're doing that. We don't know what the outcome could be. Personally, I like to think that they're using them as a thing to try and get out of the biotransference and get.
That makes a logical sense from what we know now.
Yeah.
I can imagine a mad Pharaoh or Overlord being like, "Aha! I have a cunning plan that we're going to find a way to put our consciousness back into these humans because they've got very little brains, so there's not a lot to scoop out.
We don't have to oust much. We just have to make sure they don't all die out to these fucking orcs.
Yes.
Which leads us on after that, but you can play as the Diggers.
Yes, you can.
You can, in Gorkamorka, they are a faction you can play. They are a bit weird, very orky, but not orcs. They are
very squishy.
Yes.
But also they have a slightly better ballistic skill because humans.
Yeah, not orcs.
Humans have decent
eyesight and capability of thought.
Indeed.
But yeah, Digganobz being a leader like an orc knob, but they... Like I said, they want to be orcs.
He's a Digganobz, I suppose, an orc knob.
Yes. There is another group.
There is. They're referred to as the Muties.
Yes.
Now, I suspect, it's never really explicitly said, but I suspect these were humans.
They are.
They are humans.
You have a reference. It's in the. No, you don't have the Digganobz.
I don't have the Digganobz book. No. So
in the Digganobz book, it does actually say that the Muties were humans that were in a spaceship above Angelis, and they were sent there to keep an eye on the pyramids. And when the Space Hulk came plowing through,
smashed into the ship at the same time.
It took it down with it,
right?
And it sort of went splat. And the big outer edges of it got destroyed, but the inside, the main part where they keep the central core and all the computer bits, the reactors, that all survived. And basically, because of its own reactor being not 100%.
And all the crap in the atmosphere.
All the crap in the atmosphere, and all the fuel that orcs never look after properly.
Yep.
And nuclear radiation and all the rest of it. Over time, they started to mutate.
Yes.
And they become the muties. But the sort of older ones... Oh, what's the fucking thing they call them? They call them something. I can't remember what it is.
But they're like...
But they are in charge, and they keep all the information stored on the computer database on the ship. And basically what they do is they send people out to keep an eye on everything. Because
they don't like the orcs or the diggers.
They don't like the orcs or the diggers, and they basically... But they hate the orcs the most, because they blame them for
making them what they are.
And you essentially have keepers
of
knowledge, and they basically go to the leaders and they give them the information and they put it into the computer data banks, and then you've got the general muties who try and keep the bits that they live in sort of all up to date and going and everything else. And then you've got the sort of the fightery types that you see in Gorkamorka.
Because they always had really good technology, so I wasn't sure whether they were like almost pre-imperial, whether they had like pre-imperial technology.
According to what I've read...
Because this is the one faction I don't know a lot about. I never really got a chance to read into them much at the time.
Just very briefly, Angelus was a suspected Necron tomb world, prompting Imperial efforts to assess the planet. At the time of the crash, there were surveyors underground in the pyramid. They're the diggers.
Yeah.
And then the other part is the ship in space that they came from.
Yeah.
Which came down with it, and that's how you end up with the two factions, essentially. So you've got the sort of surveyors going underground.
Yeah, they sort of regress and become...
Regress a bit. They're your diggers. And the ones that came down with the ship...
Very time machine. Very Morlocks and Eloy.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Yeah,
the guys underground become the Eloy, the sort of very dim but like just well-meaning people, and then the Morlocks being the physically twisted but smart ones.
Yeah. So that's how you end up with the muties, and the muties basically despise the orcs.
Yes.
And they come out of the desert and just generally start attacking.
Yeah, because they ride like weird lizardy beast things, don't they?
Yes, they do.
They were never... Yeah, there was no like dismounted ones. You literally just had like a raiding
parties.
All on mounted on the weird lizardy beasts, and they all had really good technology. So you didn't get many muties, but the ones you had really good weapons.
Yeah. And that's the other faction, basically. And how they came about was, like I say, the muties are humans, but the Imperium being what it is, and not having heard from them in a while, went, well, nothing else is happening over there, so bugger it, we'll just leave it at that. If that tomb world wakes up, I'm sure we'll hear about it in a couple of 100 years, and we'll be able to do...
Yeah, to be honest, they would. Yeah, that's probably more likely what happens. Is like they're like, well, we don't really give a shit, but if we hear reports of Necrons, then we might vaguely do something about it if it starts coming towards some planets that are worth more than about £2.
Yeah. Because the other thing to remember, of course, is that Angelus was not really a valuable planet
to begin with.
No,
it was just being like a lot of Necron tomb worlds. It was just an empty planet that was being monitored.
Yeah, the only reason even anybody cared about it was because it had maybe had some Necrons on it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Where if they hadn't had Necrons on it, the Imperium would not have given the slightest shit about it, because there was literally nothing of importance on Angelus at all.
Yeah, and it's not even in a good strategic location because it's so far out in the fringe. You have to be really useful.
Yeah,
to be really like
it would have to have something useful
going for
on it, like minerals.
The ability to grow something, minerals, the ability to
it's too far
do
off,
anything.
Yeah, it's too far off the beaten path to be of any interest to the Mechanicum, because it can't be a Forge world. It's too far out.
Yeah,
it's not an Agri world, so no one cares about it. So Angelus meh, and then of course all this happens, and that's why the orcs are able to just do whatever they want, and nobody's come to check on them.
Yeah.
Because,
who cares about
it?
Nowhere.
The Administratum doesn't really give much of a shit, honestly, so let's ignore it completely. Okay, so we've covered all the factions.
Yes.
In as much detail as really we're going to get into in the hour or so that we do, because with the actual orcs we could go into for ages. But I thought what we could do now is, because we're surrounded by books from the Dark Grey Library of Pete.
Yeah.
Araman had to be shooed out again before we got here.
Yeah.
He's
always sniffing around.
We could have a look at some of the stat lines and different bits and pieces.
Some of the special characters.
From Gorkamorka that are important. And I've got in front of me the Red Gobbo. Which I think is the best place to start.
Of course.
So the Red Gobbo is armed with a custom slugger, a club and a knife.
Yes.
It's worth mentioning, actually, that Pete did mention while we were paused for a second to vape and drink and whatever else, that the Gretchen in here were the Gretchen for 40k.
Yeah, the grot models in here pretty much became the grots if you've ever had metal grots in 40k after 2nd edition, they were the grots from Gorkamorka. They just got transposed over and just got renamed into grots or Gretchen, and up until the replacement with the plastic Gretchen herd that we have now, they served long and hard, longer than almost any other model from the Gorkamorka range.
Right.
Survived
really cool.
into the modern era.
But not longer than Rod in Southampton.
No, not longer than Rod.
No one has served longer than Rod.
So the Red Gobbo. As Pete said earlier, you get random stats.
It's brilliant, yeah.
It's great. But his movement is always 4.
Because there's certain things, movement and toughness, they're pretty much the same thing.
So his toughness is also 4, which is quite good.
Character grots and character orcs always used to be 4. So.
He has leadership 7, which is meh, but goblin. So
for a goblin, for a Gretchen, holy moly, that guy's practically like, I don't know, Napoleon.
Yeah. However, his weapon skill is D6 plus 1.
Indeed.
Meaning that Pete
2 if it was me. I played him. Yeah.
His ballistic skill is D6 plus 1.
Again, 2 if I was playing him.
His strength is D3 plus 1.
2
if it he has D3 wounds.
Or 1, if it was me,
Initiative of D3 plus 1.
2,
2 for Pete again. And an attack of 1. Actually, sorry, no.
D3,
D3 attack.
Yeah, so every time you hide him, you had to roll up his stats, because like I said, it could be the same goblin or it could be a new one.
Yeah. So he is he will only fight for Rebel Grots mobs.
Indeed.
He can't go in anywhere else.
No.
He's not hired in the normal way.
No.
Rebel Grots cannot purposely seek him out. He will only ever turn up in the mob. He will only ever turn up for your mob if you are fighting against a mob with a higher mob rating.
He only fights for the proletariat, the downtrodden.
The downtrodden, yes indeed. And he also gets some skills, and he gets D6 random skills.
Yes, because again, it's not always the same goblin.
Not always the same goblin. So the skills he can get are ferocity. Do you remember any of these?
They'll be on the tables.
Go on.
Let me find them.
Find the tables.
Right,
please.
so you go through the different types.
Okay, so we've got ferocity, muscle, boarding, cunning.
Yeah, these are the different tables.
Daka, and odd. Now,
here we go.
I'm going to try and work out if I can figure out what each of these does, and
here we go.
Pete will tell me if I'm right.
Here we are.
I think ferocity is either more attacks or re-rolling attacks.
So we have each of these are different tables.
Oh, right. Oh, shit. So this
is a bit like Necromunda, if you remember the old Necromunda. Yes, so ferocity skills...
we get more... Oh, I see.
Include many things. So you get basically, you roll up which table to roll on.
Oh, I see.
So he gets a bunch of skills that could be... So you roll up a bunch and then you roll up. So, like, for example, ferocity skills include things such as... A warrior of this skill rolls double the number of attack dice on his profile when he charges into hand-to-hand combat, but may not use a shield to block when charging. Note, you double the attacks before adding +1 for using 2 hand weapons. Or play chicken.
Ooh.
Is the number 6 on the skill table. If a vehicle attempts to run over, swipe, or rake a warrior with this skill, they stand their ground as the vehicle closes in and point a gun while grinning widely. If the warrior manages to jump out of the way of the ram, he may shoot at the ramming vehicle. The shot is made immediately after the warrior jumps out of the way and before the vehicle completes its move. So that's 2 examples. There's 6 of them.
Yeah,
we won't go through all of them.
So muscle, I guess, is fighting
muscle.
stuff?
Yeah, this is things like flying tackle. The warrior adds +2 to their combat score when charging instead of +1. Or headbutt. If the warrior inflicts 2 or more hits in hand-to-hand combat, then they may choose to combine some of the hits to a single hit with a strength bonus. The bonus is equal to +1 to your base strength for each hit after the first that is combined. So you could exchange 3 strength 4 hits for a strength 5 and a strength 4 or a strength 6. So,
I see.
Yes.
Boarding,
that'll be over the page.
I guess
odd. Oh no, boarding skills might be one from Digganobz.
Oh right, okay.
So we don't have boarding skills, sadly.
Cunning
we do have.
Excellent.
This one's a good one. This is a great name. How much? This skill may only be used by knobs. Reroll this result for any type of warrior. The warrior has some skill in negotiation, meaning he used when visiting the dock surgery or mech's workshop.
Oh.
If the negotiation tactic fails, the knob can always use his considerable size and strength to persuade the professional to do what he wants anyway. If your knob has a skill, you can reroll the cost of custom jobs or surgeries. What else have we got? Duck and weave. The warrior ducks and weaves as he moves through the desert, making a supremely difficult target. If the warrior is on foot, any shot at him are -1 to hit.
Oh, nice.
Sneak off is also another great one. If you roll captured on the injury table, he runs away.
Daka.
Dakka skills. Are they over the page? Yes.
Excellent.
We have cool with a K.
Ooh.
The warrior keeps a cool head and picks his targets well. When they shoot, they can pick any warrior's target, not just the closest. If the warrior is firing at a vehicle, he can pick the location he's shooting at. Bomber, the warrior has a fine eye for lobbing stick bombs. He can reroll dice to hit if he misses with one. Hip shooting, Dakka, rapid fire, and dead eye are the other skills he can have.
And the last one is odd.
Yes, so odd skills encompass a bunch of things.
Okay.
So this is what would probably be tech skills, I would have thought would be in Necromunda.
So. Yeah.
So we have things like dock. The warrior fancies himself a bit of a dock and will attempt to patch up wounded warriors with great enthusiasm, if little actual technique. Luckily, orc bodies respond well to staples and glue. At the end of the game, you can reroll a single serious injury for each dock in your mob. The other one looks like quite fun is backseat driver. This warrior is also very good at suggesting courses of action to the driver of a vehicle.
That's my wife.
Yeah, if she's got odd skills.
You've got
backseat
odd skills.
If the warrior is in a vehicle but not driving, the vehicle's driver may use the warrior's leadership characteristic for any test they are required to make, turning under thrusters, avoiding rams, and so on. So there you go.
I'm well known for turning on thrusters and avoiding rams.
Yeah, well that's because I'm assuming because you lose your wife's leadership skill for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you were trying to get the aircon on in the car last night, and I was like, watch out! And
I nearly ran into a massive bush because I was trying to get the aircon in the right places.
Yeah, we've all been there.
I was only doing like 3 miles an hour at the time.
But yes, so that is the various skills he can have.
Various skills. He also, this is Red Gobbo, excuse me, he's inspiring, which lets other goblins use his leadership. He is die hard. He can always test to recover from pinning.
Yep.
Even if there is no other friendly mod within 2 inches of him. And he has a custom slugger, which has a long range of 15 to hit at short range +1, a strength of 4, a damage of 1, an ammo roll of 4. Plus Pete, what's an ammo roll?
So if you roll a 6 to hit, you have to roll to see whether the weapon runs out of ammo. Oh. This is a mechanic that was brought over from Necromunda.
Right.
Because technically Gorkamorka is I don't want to say spin-off is not the word. The original plan for Necromunda was there were going to be a series of these games, and they were going to be in various different settings. So we had one. So obviously the first one set in the basement of a sort of Imperial Hive City, hence Necromunda. This one being an orc one set on a desert planet, and that was going to be the series one. So they use the same basic core mechanics. So ammo was one of those things where if you roll a 6 to hit, you then had to roll to see whether the gun ran out of ammo.
A 4+.
So 4+ is about right. So you sort of 3 broad categories. Usually were like 2. The ammo rolls were usually 2+, 4+, or 6+. There are a few things around other things.
Right.
6+, things like las guns, freaking awesome, because they would pass. No, sorry, the other way around. 2+ was an ammo roll for a las gun, which means they would only run out of ammo on a 1. Auto weapons were your 4+, the bullets might jam or whatever, and bolt weaponry was always a 6. So this is always fun. Brief side to my time playing a lot of Necromunda. A friend of mine had a heavy bolter in his gang, which was absolutely lethal. If he would sort of set the guy up pointing in a vague direction and no one would go in that corridor, but he'd probably only get to fire it once in a game because he'd fire it, immediately roll a 6 on one of the dice and then have to roll an ammo test and then obviously fail it. So
fantastic.
We should do a series on your YouTube channel of us playing some Gorkamorka at some point.
We'll have to break it out.
You still have it, right? You still have. Well,
I've got the rules. It
can't be hard to get the.
Models. Well, even then, models are easy to use because it's one of those things There have been a lot of times recently where I have wanted to do a new Gorkamorka campaign.
Yeah.
Because obviously they updated the truck.
Yes.
And the truck is actually vaguely the same. The bed and things like that are pretty much the same size as the original truck.
Oh, right, okay.
Same with the buggies and things. We've obviously got all the new wonderful Boomdacker Snazbagons and things.
Yeah.
We've obviously got lovely war bikes. I think the only thing we don't have access to currently is war tracks, but I'm sure
we can pick some of them up cheap somewhere.
Or either that, or you can convert them quite easily from using some of the buggies and whatnot. So I would love to revisit the planet of Gorkamorka.
I just turned the page to see Painting My Grots, which sounds very personal, by someone called Grand Warlord Wood.
Warlord Adrian Wood, very famous member of the Games Workshop studio, I would say, from back in the day. He was very famous for knowing all things Orky, regardless of game.
I think
he also then used to work for Black Library for a long time.
Yeah, I think that this guy was in one of the first White Dwarfs I read, and he's the reason I wanted to do an orc army.
That's about right. Yeah, he always had great ability to give a good orky face. Great, yeah. He was the all things greenskin. No matter what game system it was, Adrian Wood would be there for.
Did he do the Orcs Rift one?
Orcs Drift. He may have done against the Praetorians.
Yeah,
I would assume so because it would either be him or probably the other luminary of the era, Andy Chambers.
It might have been Andy Chambers.
Either one of the two, but it's if it's an orc thing in any game system, be it Epic, Warhammer, Gorkamorka, anything like that, there is a good chance that it would be Grand Warlord Adrian Wood, as he was always referred to.
Yes.
In White Dwarf.
I know he was. I think he was part of a battle report I read in a White Dwarf that was like Orcs versus Empire, and it was like 3 or 4. I think it was him, Andy Chambers, and 2 others and like 10,000 or 12,000 points.
Yes, I remember that. That was one of the biggest battle reports.
4 dudes with their
I think it was like Rick Priestley and Jervis and things like that. Yeah.
And their Empire armies, and they had all the steam tanks. And all the Orc war bosses.
Yeah, it was quite awesome.
All of them, and it looked amazing, and it took them days and days apparently to get through for this one issue of White Dwarf.
Yeah, it's like 4 pages or whatever. This battle report,
It took them a day a page.
I said, the one thing I miss the most about this era of White Dwarf, and it's something that we've had a little bit of sneak peek of recently, is I will always miss the battle reports. I miss the diagram maps of the boards.
Yeah.
I this is a personal rant and a little side. This is our one tangent for the day, but I find modern battle reports hard to keep track of when they're just action shots from the game. Like I read through, even if I'm reading through, it's never as like comprehensive. I miss this era because each turn you'd have this diagram, you'd see exactly what was killed, you'd see exactly where units moved to, and it was very easy, even if you just flicked through the pages, to follow what was happening in the game by seeing what things were doing on the little diagram pages. Now, saying that, they did bring that back for Legiones Imperialis, and I think also for the older battle report. I think for us old hoary veterans, they broke out the graphic software to bring it back to us.
Windows XP.
Probably wouldn't even be that. Would have been Windows 95 at this
95,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, but
that
I still
very much looks like clip art.
Oh yeah, it's probably their own homemade clip art. But the point being is, like I said,
those are the arrows from PowerPoint.
Yeah, I absolutely miss this era because, like I said, even without reading this battle report, flicking through the pages, I can tell exactly what has happened on every turn.
So one of the reasons I miss battle reports done on the page is the battle report was the thing that got me into this hobby.
Yeah.
A battle report in a White Dwarf was the reason that I wanted to start doing this hobby.
Yeah.
And as much as battle reports on the screen, because there are countless of them now, you can find them everywhere.
Again, I feel it's one of those things that doesn't translate particularly well to moving images.
I have a real
personally.
I have a real issue with the focus level that it's required to watch. Like, so if you
can't have it on in the background.
You have to pay attention to it, and my enjoyment of things like that is select.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was to sit down and read that battle report, I would probably read all the way through and be fine.
But like I said, even at a glance, I can tell exactly how this game has gone. They've got the victory points usually used to put like the running total, and then you get these big little. There's one here which is just this is an Eldar versus Blood Angel battle report randomly, and there's a big. They used to have like the tell you what happened every turn.
Yeah.
So you'd literally have a big box that would say Eldar turn 4, and then he'd run through what he did in turn 4, and then Space Marine turn 4, and he'd run through what he did there. But like, there's a couple of things where there's like a bigger bolt, like they're taking a quote, and one here is just brilliant. It's like, my only ray of hope this term came once again from the fire prison, which finally destroyed that bleeping predator.
Yes.
Which I
think I read that battle report as well. This is my era that you're flicking.
Same, this is my era.
Like,
I mean,
the 97-ish.
I feel like we're leaning into what this could be the next episode of the podcast, is talking about what I refer to as the golden era of White Dwarf.
Yeah, I do too. Coming up, however,
nominally,
I do have next week's episode.
Okay, we'll put it in the pipeline.
Put it in the pipelines. Definitely the White Dwarf and how they could make it back being good again.
Yes.
But next week. I don't know how we're doing for time, by the way, but I think we're pretty much done on Gorkamorka now.
Yes.
It was always going to be a slightly shorter episode. So next week, I realised the other day that we both say words
on
this podcast.
We do say words.
And I wonder...
Some of them are coherent.
I wonder sometimes if everybody that listens knows what those words mean.
What, in the slang and the...
Yes.
Yeah, this is...
I think it is worth doing what Evie referred to for me, because I couldn't think of the fucking word, as a glossary, edition. Yes. And that will be to take different words from all the different game systems and explain to the dear listener what the fuck they mean. Yes,
I agree. That's a very good... having been on the inside for many a decade at this point, you get used... It's the same with any game system. I find it really funny, especially hanging... This is why I like going to places like Lazy Dragon Gaming, is even if you're into a game, it's really interesting overhearing from the outside what a game sounds like with its slang, which is why I find Lorcana specifically amusing, because I think I can probably, with great confidence, say most people have a good grounding in the lingo of Disney movies.
Yes.
So everyone knows who Stitch, Ursula, The Little Mermaid, Ariel, like Disney princesses, all of these things. People have a good grounding. So when you take that and apply that to the shorthand lingo that people use when it comes to a game, I find it amusing because I'm on the outside.
So the other reason I bring this up is because we have a very good friend called Abby.
Yes.
And Abby is not a card gamer.
Yes.
She is surrounded, however, by former Magic players.
Yeah.
And we refer to things as bounce.
Yes.
And wrath.
Tutor.
And tutor.
And mill.
Yeah,
right?
the shorthand from Magic the Gathering.
Shorthand.
I understand what you mean.
Now, you know exactly what I meant when I said that. Now, just take for a moment...
She just thinks you're freestyle rapping.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, good. Yeah, no, this is what I mean.
So this is why I thought, wouldn't it be a good idea for anybody who is new-ish to explain when we say Space Hulk...
Or 40k.
Or 40k, even. You know, or Imperial, or the Guard.
Yeah.
Or even the Emperor...
Or, in my opinion, a lot of the time, for me... Eldar. Or even Dark Eldar. These things that no longer the au fait words.
Yeah, so we can do a bit of a glossary, tie in like the Eldari with the Eldar, the Drakari with the Dark, all that sort of thing.
Squats and the
Votan and all that sort of thing. So we can just... But I think rather than... I'm going to try and make a list, because I feel if we freestyle it, which we both are guilty of doing,
very much so,
that we will be tangenty when it will be a 12-hour episode, and nobody will be any the wiser by the time we've finished.
Yeah, but I'll feel better. It's fine.
Everyone will feel better, apart from the people listening. So so next week we're going to do a glossary episode, and that is to fill in for the more casual or newer listener, and maybe we can teach some of the older people something as well,
or even some of the older lingo.
The older lingo,
how it translates to what the kids are calling it these days.
Exactly.
We can help the old folk like myself understand what an Eldari actually is.
Yes, and what an Astra Militarum is.
There's going to be a lot of grumbling by me.
Yeah.
This is me doing my best impression of a dwarf longbeard, I think, next week. Yeah.
You must grow your beard out more.
I do,
You are looking very beardling. So so with that, I think we can relatively come to an end there.
Indeed.
I think so.
So it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from him.
And it's good night from her.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.